The Truman Show, the movie about a man who grew up in a set and doesn't realize until later in life once things start acting weird around him. Truman lives in a fake world with fake relatives and a fake relationship with a fake job, but it's all real to him. It makes him feel comfortable, stable, normal, complete. The film responds to the modern world in an original way by showing a hyper-real world where media, commercials, and ordinary life all collapse in this managed reality that Truman lives in. At the end of the film, Truman escapes the set. And that escape matters because he's not rejecting just a lie, but a whole system built on the hyper-real instead of the real. The Truman Show was directed by Peter Weir and released in 1998. So Truman, he lives in a normal life in Sea Haven. He's got his job, a wife, his best friend, his routine, but then he slowly notices that strange things keep happening around him. A stage light falls from the sky. The town feels way too coordinated. He gets to the point where he realizes his whole life has been staged as a TV show. The man who runs the show, Christoph, controls the world around him like a god. Anytime he's trying to have a normal life, a person will come in and randomly place him next to an advertisement or show something near his face. It's not real, it's hyper-real because it's pulling from the best part of that experience. He thinks he's going crazy when really the people running the set are scrambling to try and make sure that he doesn't keep revealing the truth to himself in order to keep him contained in the set. He only comes across one real thing, which is a woman that he meets. And she tells him she's not allowed to talk to him, but he doesn't care. They run off and have a good time, and eventually the people that run the set try to take her away. And she tries to reveal the truth to him, but they don't let her. And quite frankly, in this world of hyper-real, that was the first real thing that ever happened to him. And you see him taking cutouts of magazines and placing them to try and recreate the face of the woman that was the only real thing that was ever in his life. So how does this relate to Baudrillard? Well, Baudrillard argues that film does not always just reflect reality from a distance. Sometimes representation can come from part of the same system as the reality it's showcasing. In his Apocalypse Now, the idea is basically that war becomes film, and film becomes war. Baudrillard is pushing against the modern assumption that more media, more information, more communication automatically produces more meaning. And that's completely reflected within the entire reality of The Truman Show. The more media, the more they try to push this fake reality, the more it makes Truman want to break free. The harder they contain him, the less meaning that he finds within the world that he wants to still exist in. The representation of reality is collapsing within itself, as Truman has no real concept of what is true. He lives in a perpetual state of hyper-reality. The simulation is his reality. He knows no different. The only real truth that he ever experienced was the woman that came into his life and got stolen away. Truman's reality showcases how the information has devoured itself and has kept loose gates around his real perception. When watching, you'd expect Truman to absorb this comforting reality, as who wouldn't want to be the center of attention? But as Baudrillard shows, and as the movie shows, this comforting center of the world will only leave you to not want to be a part of it. It loses the substance that gave it meaning to begin with. I like to think of it as reality being 3D and the hyperreal being a 2D image that has been drawn to look 3D. It gives the appearance of meaning, but it really doesn't have it. Despite reflecting what are arguably the best parts of reality, it lacks what makes reality worth living. So Sea Haven is this hyper-real world, a fully manufactured reality by Christoph. What makes Baudrillard such a great choice for this film is that because the Sea Haven world is a hyper-real world. Media is what makes up the reality that Truman exists in. It's the best parts, not the true nature of reality, which has true meaning. It is not obviously artificial. It's pleasant. It's nice. That's why it works for Truman, and that's why it's worked for so long until a stage light fell. As soon as he begins to notice these inconsistencies within his perfect reality, that's when he gets glimpses into what the real is. And just subtle glimpses of the real make Truman want it badder than anything. The real problem with Sea Haven is not that it's fake or that it works around Truman. It's that you could live in Sea Haven and be completely fine. It feels like something you could exist in and be okay, despite not anything being truly real. There's no real communication going on inside Sea Haven. It's Kristoff and the commercials. It's the media that's communicating instead of this communication being produced. Nothing's natural, but it's fine, it works. Signs of intimacy replaces actual intimacy. As Merle isn't really wanting to be intimate with Truman, but her gesture is enough to replace actual intimacy for Truman. It's still there, being shown to you, but it has less meaning. Merle's the deepest relationship in Truman's life, but then she has to keep slipping into product placement mode. So it doesn't matter if he's out and about or in his home, he's still being surrounded by commercials. When Truman goes through old photos like the wedding photo, he notices that Merle had her fingers crossed during the vows. So the marriage still exists as the image, but the truth behind the image is missing. His best friend Marlin, his speech feels emotional. It feels sincere, but Kristoff is in his ear, feeding him the lines. The staging of his father's return is enough to bring emotional reactions out of Truman, showing that the hyper-real manages to sustain itself. It's the showcasing, not the meaning. There is no real emotion between the dad to Truman. It breaks Truman realizing that he could be very much part of the system and part of the world that controls him. He's emotionally reacting to the fact that he's part of the hyper-real, that it's no act, that there's nothing really being shown that Truman can grasp and enjoy. The movie's not only showing these fake images that keep Truman sustained, it's showing how these images of marriage, of friendship, are grief. They're just signs that keep the system running. The film's response to the modern world is that the simulation becomes more powerful when people prefer it, or rely on it, or feel comforted by it. Beyond the meaning, there's the fascination. The system of media that the world lives in today, it doesn't manipulate people, it draws them in. They would rather sit and envelop themselves in this reality than the true reality. In the movie, people are watching Truman everywhere. They watch him at home, in bars, in private places, like watching some Twitch live streamer for hours and hours just living their life without realizing they're being filmed to begin with. Kristoff wants to keep Truman in Sea Haven. He believes Sea Haven is great. He defends it not because it's what reality represents, but because it's a safe representation of reality. He tries telling Truman that there's no more truth outside than in the world that he created for him. Kristoff is basically offering him a reality that's already interpreted and already arranged. Truman's escape matters because he's choosing uncertainty over this perfectly managed world. He's not rejecting a lie. He's rejecting a whole reality structure. After Truman leaves, the viewers just move on to something else to watch. That in itself shows how culture is turning content into consumption. So that in itself showcases how people are just wanting to consume the next thing with no care about what just happened before. It's lost all of its meaning. You end up with a single, indecipherable nebula. That's why people stop at the fascination and never find that meaning. The ending matters because he's not escaping a trick played on by Kristoff. He's walking out of a world that was designed to feel easier than reality. So how does this film respond to the modern world in an original way? Well, it shows modern life as a hyper-real system where media doesn't just represent reality. It shows modern life as a hyper-real system where media doesn't just represent reality, but manufactures it. It shows that communication can still be everywhere while meaning collapses underneath it. It shows that the simulation becomes the strongest when it feels comforting and when it feels normal. Truman's final choice matters because he's choosing uncertain truth over managed delusions. If you're going to approach the real world, You need to break away from what you think represents the real world. Because what you might think represents might be the hyper-real that's containing you from experiencing true meaning. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful spring break.